When I go grocery shopping, you won't find any name brands going into my cart. I'm always bargain shopping. I want to save a few bucks. What's the difference if I get cup of noodles or ramen? They both taste like noodles boiled in chicken gizzards and salt water. What's the difference if I get Honey O's or Honey Nut Cheerios? They taste the same. One's $1 less. Except for toilet paper. Always buy brand name toilet paper. You don't want to sit down to do your daily business and tear through that quicker than Derrick Henry tearing through opposing defenses. Your hand will be forever unclean, and you don't want that. But in some instances, it does make sense to skip on those big names and find some other names that are a little bit less. And in this video, the Fantasy Headliners, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to talk about some big names here in 2020 that you should avoid because you might get some similar production at a better price elsewhere. What's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here with another in-depth episode for you. And in this one, we're going to be talking about some big names that we need to avoid here in 2020. Based on a few different reasons, I've got 3 guys that with their current ADP, I'm just not interested. I think I can find some better values elsewhere in our drafts. So let's jump straight into it and talk about my first player, Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, same face, new place, now out in Denver after spending his career in LA for the most part, but with the Chargers. Melvin Gordon's 2019, a bit underwhelming, but if you forget, he did end up sitting out to start the season. His 2019 statistics, 162 rush attempts, 612 rush yards, 8 rush touchdowns. And then a guy that's always been a dual threat running back out of the backfield, 42 receptions, 296 yards, 1 receiving touchdown, with Austin Eckler really breaking out and becoming a guy that could be depended upon in that offense last year. Melvin Gordon wasn't needed on the field nearly as much as what we've seen in the past. One thing about Melvin Gordon in his entire career, except for one season, is that he's been efficiently inefficient. That's how he's basically been his entire career. So there's a couple of different statistics that I took a look at to kind of see how inefficient he actually has been while in the NFL. Well, let's take a look first at fantasy points per touch. Now, this is since 2015 when he entered the league as a rookie. Among running backs that had at least 100 fantasy points in each season, in 2015, he ranked 47th, only averaging 0.54 fantasy points per touch. That was his rookie year, so we're going to give him a little bit of a break. So in 2016, he gets a little bit better. 0.86 fantasy points per touch, 23rd. A little bit better after that in terms of overall ranking, but his fantasy points per touch goes down in 2017 to 0.84. Now, 2018 was really that huge year for Melvin Gordon. He put everything together. He had 1.21 fantasy points per touch, which was 6th among running backs who scored at least 100 fantasy points. But then last year in 2019, he takes a little bit more of a step back, going to 0.92 fantasy points per touch. Here's my issue with that. If you look at his career, you take his rookie year and you say, toss that out the door. Rookie year, sometimes it takes those guys to get going. He has one outlier season, which is his big season. But other than that, he's really in between that 0.84 and 0.92 fantasy points per touch. So really, it has been his volume that has been helping him because he hasn't been that efficient on a per touch basis. If you look at his season last year when he got less volume, maybe that's more along the lines of the true Melvin Gordon that we would see if he doesn't get nearly as many touches. So let's talk about something else. And typically I don't talk about yards per attempt too much because with yards per attempt, it's a stat that I don't believe tells the whole story. But in this case, I do think we need to talk about it a little bit more. Now, based on the most carries in a season For a running back that averaged under 4.0 yards per attempt, Melvin Gordon's name shows up quite a bit. In 2017, he had the third most touches in a season while averaging less than 4 yards per attempt. He had 284 attempts, 3.89 yards. In 2016, he had the 11th highest attempts in a season while averaging under 4 yards per carry, 3.93 yards per attempt. In 2015, his rookie year, 184 attempts, the 29th most while averaging under 4 yards per carry. And then, of course, in 2019, the 39th most carries in a season while averaging under 4.0 yards per carry. Now, keep in mind, in Denver, where he is a new player, they have a new offensive coordinator as well, Pat Shurmur. Now, what has Pat Shurmur done in the past? Again, new offensive coordinator this year for the Denver Broncos. Well, let's talk about what teams have done with Pat Shurmur as their head coach or offensive coach since 2009. During that time, Pat Shurmur-led offenses have had 4 seasons when they have been in the top 15 of rushing attempts. Of those 4 seasons, 3 of them have placed them in the top 10 of rushing attempts. But what about throwing the football? Where has his team ranked throwing the football as a head coach or offensive coordinator? Well, since 2009, his team's 9 seasons where they have been top 15 in pass attempts, and of those 9 seasons, 6 of them, they've been in the top 10 of pass attempts. So this is an offense that just brought in some new shiny weapons in Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. They have Noah Fant, a breakout tight end from the end of his rookie season, and of course, the big dog there, Courtland Sutton at wide receiver. And also don't forget, they have 2 incumbent running backs, one of which is a guy that's been a pretty good running back over the last couple of years. So, based on rush attempts alone, maybe they're not going to be running the football nearly as much as they think. They have a lot of offensive weapons. They have a quarterback that they believe in Drew Lock, and they're going to be playing in a division where you're probably going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. You're going to get Kansas City twice a year. You're going to get Las Vegas twice a year. The LA Chargers, his old team, you're probably still going to have to throw on them a little bit because I don't think that offense is going to be as bad as people expect. But what about Pat Shurmur running back usage? What about some running backs that he has had in the past? Among the top rushing attempt seasons, so the only seasons I took a look at were the seasons that I just mentioned ago where they were top 15 in rushing attempts. Okay? Those are the seasons that I'm taking a look at. Of those seasons, you got the 2010 Rams. Steven Jackson was the workhorse. He had 330 attempts in that season. The 2013 Eagles. You had our boy LaShawn McCoy there in his prime, 314 attempts. 2014, Eagles prime, LaShawn McCoy, 312 attempts. But during those 3 seasons, you look at them and you say, well, that's great for Melvin Gordon. They're going to work him. He's a workhorse. But during those seasons, they didn't have any true backups. They didn't have guys like Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. I'm not worried about Royce Freeman at all, but Phillip Lindsay is going to get his due. Because in some other Pat Shurmur offenses, more recently, 2015 with the Eagles, when LaShawn McCoy was out, DeMarco Murray was in, they actually split it up a little bit. Ryan Matthews got over 106 or over 100 carries with 106 attempts that season. DeMarco Murray had 193 attempts. Now, DeMarco Murray at times was a little banged up, and also he wasn't that great. If any of you remember, when he went to the Eagles, that was a disaster in the making. But he really split that backfield. The backfield usage in splits that I could end up seeing closely resemble the 2017 Vikings. If you remember, Dalvin Cook injured, so you had Latavius Murray with 216 attempts and Jerick McKinnon with 115 attempts. That is the type of split I plan on seeing from the Denver Broncos this year. So really, I'm thinking about 200 attempts for Melvin Gordon on the ground. Might see a little bit of passing work, but Phillip Lindsay is a guy that has been pretty good this season. One of the reasons they brought in Melvin Gordon is he's a much better pass blocker. Well, if Melvin Gordon is pass blocking, he's not necessarily going out and running routes or touching the football. So I definitely think that they are going to use Melvin Gordon. But based on some of Pat Shurmur's old numbers, they're still going to throw the ball quite a bit. And there's a good chance that because they have a solid backup there with Phillip Lindsay, they're going to give him enough touches to really wreck Melvin Gordon's fantasy value. Melvin Gordon may not finish too high up as a running back 2 this year. He may finish more towards that 24, 23, 22 area as a low-end running back 2 because he might not get the type of usage that we've seen in the past. And as the numbers show us, Melvin Gordon is not nearly efficient enough, especially when it comes to maybe a new team, a new playbook, a season in which some of those offseason workouts are going to be cut short. They've already been cut short, and you have to move to Mile High. So maybe that altitude messes with him a little bit. So Melvin Gordon, I'm completely off this year unless his ADP were to plummet significantly. But right now, you would have to get him as a early running back 2 in order to get him in your drafts. That's a little too spicy for me. Here's another guy that I got for you, and this might surprise some of you because let me tell you, I am a huge fan of this guy. When he came out in the draft, he was my wide receiver 1, and I hated the spot that he landed in. However, last year he had the breakout, and I was super excited to see it. DJ Moore. I love me some DJ Moore. Long term, I am 100% on board with DJ Moore. But for 2019, I believe in 2020, I believe we see a slight step back from his 2019 statistics. Again, huge year for DJ Moore. 15 games, 130 targets. That was 9th. 87 receptions. That was 10th. 1,175 yards. Put him 8th. And then, of course, he had 4 touchdowns. Obviously, you would like to see more touchdowns out of DJ Moore. But my main concern is Teddy Bridgewater. Can Teddy B get it done? Well, one of the things that I really feel could end up hampering DJ Moore is the lack of the deep passing game. And we saw it at times when Teddy Bridgewater stepped in New Orleans last year while Drew Brees was hurt. They didn't push the ball down the field that often. But I don't want to discredit Teddy B because of that stretch, because really what the New Orleans Saints were trying to do, they were just trying to put the team in situations to win and not put the team in situations where Teddy B had to win. They relied on short passes, they relied on their athletes, their playmakers, and they let them make Teddy B look good. So I wanted to go all the way back to when he was with the Minnesota and take a look at his deep passing attempts in those games. 2014 with Minnesota in 13 games, it doesn't look great. 41 deep attempts, 26. His 16 deep completions were 20th, and his 467 deep yards were 26. Okay? First season. Can take a little bit of time to adjust. So maybe in year 2, they open it up a little bit more. Not so fast. 2015 with the Minnesota Vikings in 13 games. Okay? 48 deep attempts, 22nd. 15 deep completions, 23rd. 436 deep yards, 29th. Teddy Bridgewater has never been known as a quarterback that pushes the ball down the field in his NFL career. Now, 2014, they were a little bit short at wide receiver, but in 2015, they had Mike Wallace and they had Stephon Diggs, a couple of guys that could go deep, didn't really utilize it. Also with Teddy Bridgewater, maybe we see them spread the ball around a little bit. Maybe it's not necessarily DJ Moore is the lock and loaded wide receiver 1 that's going to get the most volume. Does he have the most targets and is he the wide receiver 1 there? Yes, 100%. But based on the statistics, I don't necessarily think that they are going to lock onto him and make him that true number 1 guy that they always go to. So I went back and I looked a little bit more. No player had 100 targets in 2014 or 2015 with Teddy Bridgewater. The game plan with Bridgewater has always been run the ball and spread the ball around. Run the football and then look for the guys that are open. Find matchups for them, exploit those matchups, and win those matchups. That is what the game plan has always been with Teddy Bridgewater. That's why I'm concerned, because they also have potentially some added competition. They brought in Robbie Anderson. Yeah, he is that deep threat. He's probably going to take the place of DJ Moore going deep. So is DJ Moore going to have to turn himself a little bit more into that type of wide receiver that wins a lot after the catch? I think he can do that. I love DJ Moore, but some of those deep passes, some of those big plays we saw from DJ Moore last year, we might not see this year because those might go towards Robbie Anderson instead. Also, what about Curtis Samuel? Maybe he takes another step forward. Ian Thomas, maybe he takes a step up at tight end now that Greg Olsen is gone. So those are just a few concerns that I have with this offense. And again, it's nothing against DJ Moore. I love DJ Moore. In Dynasty Leagues, he's a top 12 wide receiver for me. I think he gets better after this year. But again, with an offseason that's all over the place, quarterbacks and wide receivers aren't really getting a chance to work together. Teddy Bridgewater is going to have a new game plan. This is going to be a new offense as well, okay? Keep that in mind. This is not what we've seen in the past from this team. This is going to be a new offense now, a new game plan, a new setup, a new scheme. So we're going to have to also be careful with that. So right now, DJ Moore, you got to take him as your wide receiver 10. I think DJ Moore, for me, is still a high upside wide receiver too. But for you to take him at that wide receiver 10 spot, a lot of times I see him kind of going in that second round right now. There's just a few other guys that I might take a look at right now besides him. Again, love DJ Moore. I just think we're going to be a little underwhelmed with some of his numbers this year. Now we got to move on to another player. But first, got to remind you that sometimes when we're looking at these players, we really want to find guys that we can trust. And what better to trust when you're taking care of yourself than Manscaped? Your balls will thank you. That's right. Manscaped, official partners here and sponsors with the Fantasy Headliners. If you head over to manscaped.com and make any type of purchase over there, you get 20% off. Use that promo code Headliners, all capital letters. Go get yourself some Manscaped. Keep yourself nice, cool, and clean this summer, and make sure to use code Headliners when you do that. Okay, so this third player that we're going to talk about is a guy that I brought up in a video several weeks ago. So that video is a little bit more in-depth, focusing on only this player instead of this video where we've had three guys that we've talked about. But I wanted to bring back some of that information because when I did that video, I called it Breakout or Bust for 2020, and I took a look at A.J. Brown a little bit deeper. And I really gave you two different stories with A.J. Brown, and I said, this is what I see, this is what could happen. But since then, I continue to look at it, and I continue to think about it, and for me, I am now officially out on A.J. Brown this season. 2019, his rookie year, a great rookie season. 84 targets, 52 receptions, 1,051 yards, 8 touchdowns. But the big thing with A.J. Brown last year is he was going balls deep with Ryan Tannehill. Now they've got Derrick Henry back on a brand new shiny contract. They've got Ryan Tannehill back on a brand new shiny contract. But I'm worried about those deep passes. Because last year with Ryan Tannehill, even though A.J. Brown made his living really on the deep ball, Ryan Tannehill was not that efficient with the deep ball. He had 37 attempts, which was 27th. He had 14 deep completions, which was 27th. He had 544 deep yards, which was 23rd. Now, his deep passer rating was 8th, so that's great. But that just means that when he went downtown to Brown, they were being ultra efficient, and they weren't necessarily going deep that often. Brown only had 16 deep targets. He had 8 deep receptions, 378 deep yards, and of those 16 deep targets, only 8 of them were catchable. So when they went down the field, Ryan Tannehill really wasn't that accurate with it. Again, 37 deep attempts, he only completed 14 of those. That was 27th. That right there puts him in the category as Mason Rudolph and Kyle Allen. That's how bad that is with Ryan Tannehill going down the field. Now, I like myself some Ryan Tannehill, but I'm worried that they are not going to be able to push the ball down the field as well this year as they did last year because, again, that efficiency is going to have to be through the roof. So are there some unsustainable numbers that A.J. Brown is going to have to live up to? Last year, there was only 2 wide receivers with more than 350 deep pass yards and less than 10 receptions. And you know who it was. One was A.J. Brown. The other was Mike Evans. There was 15 total wide receivers last year that had 350 deep yards. Okay, so there was quite a few people in front of A.J. Brown there. Also last year, There were only 2 wide receivers that had 1,000 receiving yards and less than 60 receptions. You already know one, right? A.J. Brown. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know the other one. It's Mike Williams. That's right. That's the type of company that A.J. Brown is in. Mike Williams, who is a sleeper for me this season, by the way. So I don't hate A.J. Brown. This is not an A.J. Brown hate video. It's not a Mike Williams love video. It's just going to show you that if you're looking for guys right now around Brown's ADP, Brown might be a little bit too boom or bust for me. Also last year, there was only 5 players that had 70-plus targets and 6.0 yards after the catch per reception. Again, we already know Brown was one of them, right? He had 8.88 yards after the catch per reception. But then you look, and you've got Curtis Samuel hanging around there at 8.49. Those are the 2 guys that didn't see a ton of volume, but they were super efficient with it. Now let's take a look at guys like Chris Godwin and Robert Woods. They got a ton of volume, but those numbers of 8 yards after the catch per reception might be completely unsustainable for A.J. Brown if he sees more volume. And again, if Ryan Tannehill can't go down the field as efficiently this year as he did last year, then maybe we have some concerns there. Because the thing is nothing's really changed with that offense, right? Yeah, they did lose Jack Conklin. That hurts a little bit. But they've got the same wide receivers in place. They have the same running back. They're probably going to have the same type of game plan. Derrick Henry is going to be the focus. So one of your arguments might be, well, hey, Kyle, Derrick Henry, he's a beast. They're going to run the football with Derrick Henry. It's going to open up the field. Well, it was open last year, right? Ryan Tannehill just didn't hit that many guys. 50% of the deep passes that went towards A.J. Brown were not catchable. So maybe with Ryan Tannehill, maybe he overperformed a little bit last year. Maybe he's not the quarterback that can beat defenses deep down the field and give A.J. Brown an entire season's worth of deep plays, and he's going to have to be ultra efficient again to put up some of those numbers. That's where I am concerned. So again, it's not that I hate A.J. Brown. It's just we've got some numbers there that might be pointing towards a little bit of regression that could cost us if we spin big on big-name players. Well, there you have it, Headliner Nation. Do me a favor down below. Hit that like button for me if you appreciate the content. Let me know down below. And also, in the comments, who are some big names that you are avoiding this year as well. And as always, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, well, you got to do me an even bigger favor. You got to hit that subscribe button. Become a part of Headliner Nation. Join our fantasy community of over 82,000 individuals, the best fantasy community that you will find. Thanks so much, Headliner Nation. I hope you all are staying safe. I hope you all are staying healthy. And I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Have a good one.